In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the Canon 24-50mm mid-range zoom lens and zoom gear, specifically inside the Ikelite 200DL underwater housing. If you have the smaller DLM style housing, I'll link that assembly on the screen now, as well as in the description. So first off, let's pay attention to the lens and remove the lens cap. And you'll notice that there is some light gray lettering around the inside diameter of the lens. Now, sometimes when you're shooting into the sun, light will reflect off the lens into the dome and produce some unwanted reflections. So to reduce those reflections, we're going to add an anti-reflection sticker to the front of the lens to cover up those letterings. Installing is very simple. Just peel the sticker off the paper backing and bend it in half, and carefully apply it over the lettering on the front of the lens. And it should look like this. Alright, we'll put the lens to the side and draw our attention to the housing itself, and you can use the included zoom gear retainer tool to loosen the zoom gear retainer. And remove the dust cap. Now for this lens specifically, I like to remove the body cap of the camera before I drop the zoom gear in, so I'll remove that. And you'll notice on the zoom gear itself, there's some lettering and two arrows pointing up, indicating that the arrows on the zoom gear need to be pointed up. So we're going to take the zoom gear and just drop it down into place with those arrows pointing up. Then we'll take our zoom gear retainer, drop that into place, and again tighten it down using the tool. Alright, then we're going to grab our lens and remove the back cap. Make sure that we're in autofocus and that the stabilizer is on. And then for this lens specifically, you need to zoom it all the way to 24 to get it out and into the shooting position. From there, we'll find the red dot on the lens and the red dot on the camera and drop it into place. You'll feel it fall into place and then just turn it to bayonet it onto the camera. Now we'll use the zoom knob on the side of the housing to make sure we have zoom functionality, and we do, so we're good to continue. And we'll move on to the ports and the dome. Now this lens specifically uses a 42mm extension and the compact 8-inch size dome. So with these two extensions ready, we're going to flip it over and make sure that all three thumb screws are backed out of the inside diameter. Run your finger along, make sure it's all backed out and that there's no hair or debris in there. And then we're going to do the same for the dome port. Alright, and then we're going to use a small amount of the included Ikelite lube between our index finger and thumb and run it around the O-ring of the extension. And we're also going to run that around the O-ring of the housing as well. This will help the parts slide together more easily, as well as help you check for any bumps, scratches, hair, debris on the O-ring. And then we'll just take that remaining lube and put it on the inside diameter of the dome port as well as the extension. Again, just making sure that all thumb screws are backed out and there's nothing there. Next, you'll notice that the three thumb screws on the dome port correspond with three pockets on the extension. So we're going to line up those thumb screws with the pockets and press the two pieces together. And tighten down the thumb screws on the dome port. If you feel any resistance, just back them out and realign. They don't need to be super tight, just hand tight. Just helps the pieces stay together, but it's not creating the seal. All right, and then the same three thumb screws are going to correspond to the same three pockets on the housing itself. So I'll lay the housing down. Make sure that the thumb screw that corresponds with the top shade is going to go at the top of our housing. So just line that up and drop it down. When the extension is flush with the housing, you can go down and tighten down all three thumb screws. Again, if you feel any resistance at all, just back them out and realign. Cool, so from here you are fully waterproof, but there is one more step that we like to take, and that is putting a vacuum on our housing. You'll notice on the side of the housing there is a vacuum valve. If you press the button, it will release the cap, and you can insert the barbed end of the vacuum inside that valve and pump up your housing. Great, so I've pumped all the way up to 10, but the number that you pick is not important. What is important is that the needle is not dropping. So once you've pumped it to your desired number, press the button again on the valve to remove the barbed end and replace the cap. And I like to do this the night before a dive when I get my system set up before I go to bed, and then leave it under a vacuum all night. And then in the morning, I'll remove the cap from the valve, plug the pump back in, and make sure that my needle did not drop from the number that I picked the night before. And once I see that the needle has not dropped, I know that my housing is fully sealed, and I can remove the barb, place the cap, and go diving. If you don't have all night, 10 to 20 minutes before the dive will be fine, but again, I like to do it the night before so that I'm extra confident that my housing is all sealed up. Now, once you're done with your dive and you want to change the lenses, charge your camera, you can just replace the barb into the valve, and there's a button on the bottom of your pump that will release the air. If you don't release the vacuum, you won't be able to remove any of the ports or the back off of the housing. If you're on a boat or somewhere where you don't have access to your pump, you can insert a small object like a pencil or a pen into the valve and release the vacuum that way. But always make sure that you replace the cap of the valve. Alright, so that's how to assemble the Canon 24 to 50 millimeter inside the Ikelite 200DL underwater housing. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments down below or shoot us an email to ikelite@ikelite.com.